Colonel Sodhi, Major Shah, still with us. I'm going to start with you, Major Shah. As far as the US is concerned, some tough sanctions, apologies, have been imposed on Russia. But when it comes to, say, import of oil, which could directly affect its economy, which could directly affect inflation, US is still cautious. Do you think that all these sanctions against Russia, barring, of course, some of these exemptions, what type of impact do you think it's going to have on Russia, on Putin? Will it actually put speed breakers on Putin's plan to continue invading inside of Ukraine?
Oh, well, I don't think anything can deter President Putin, because he has really made up his mind and he has come very well prepared and he's strategically thought of it. I will take you back to 1940s, early 1940s, when America tried interfering with the oil with Japan, and that time Japan actually turned around and did an attack on Pearl Harbor, which was the largest attack on America, and America was shocked with that. And later on, of course, bin Laden did that on September 11, 2001. That's a different thing. But America retaliated back to Hiroshima and Nagasaki with atomic bombing, with atom bomb, with nuclear bombing, and the effects of that are seen till today. That is why President Putin threatened America about 2-3 days back, couple of days back, that he's going to go nuclear. Well, his threat, it could be a threat, but at the same time, prevention is always better than cure. So it is not, one should not take it lightly at the same time. It's like a person saying, oh, I will commit suicide. And oh, he doesn't have the guts to commit suicide. And what if he jumps from a building? Then there'll be hell to pay thereafter. So yes, and it will not deter President Putin, let me tell this to you. But yes, the reverse psychology, what America did thereafter, if Russia stops firing, then we can at least revoke the sanctions. That could have been a better strategy, I feel, because President Putin seems totally unmoved by this. And that is why, when I was explaining to you about UN Charter Article 7, he gave identity to two independent areas, on the Donbas areas on 21st February. And very well prepared. And because then they can write to him for military action, which is not termed as war. So UN cannot really, first, UN is toothless tigers. Secondly, UN cannot really come in because on paper they're covered. On ground it's a war, we all know that. But on paper to show, it's a military action, it's a military exercise that they're doing. So now President Putin would be totally undeterred.
Putin is going to be undeterred by sanctions. We've seen, of course, post-Crimea also, not like it stopped him from entering Ukraine. And you rightly said, as far as you and NATO partners are concerned, it's just posturing. You know, these sanctions also on ground, end of the day, are double-edged sword. As you know, we look at the import of oil. US is really double thinking it. Colonel Sodhi, you know, when we speak of the economic ramifications, sir, of a war, the ramifications will be felt by India as well. Many don't know that India, which is quite self-sufficient when it comes to agri-commodities, is very dependent on Russia, say for sunflower oil. Sunflower being a kharif crop, it cannot be grown in the next 2 months. So, you know, do you see the war impacting Indian economy as well? And I know you're a defense personnel, this question would have been better suited for an economist, but you know, in your opinion, what type of impact do you see the Russia-Ukraine war having on India, especially as far as inflation is concerned?
Well, Meenakshi, I'll answer this question in 2 parts.
Okay.
You know, you rightly said that the sunflower oil comes from Russia. Now, Russia and Ukraine both account for 80% of the world's sunflower oil outputs. And Ukraine alone itself accounts for 50% of it. So the point is that with these two warring nations going to war, 80% of the world's sunflower oil gets affected. Now this is a very big, it will have a very big effect on India too. War has always led to the increase in inflation because prices go up, things get very costly. On 21st February, when the Russian army invaded Ukraine, that time the cost of 1 barrel of crude oil was $78. Yesterday it has reached $91. And with USA saying that it might ban the import of Russian oil, President Putin has today morning remarked that if USA does that, the cost of 1 barrel of crude oil in the world will rise up to $300. I mean, $300 is a phenomenal amount for a common man. What it translates, that today we are paying about 110 rupees per liter for petrol. If the crude oil reaches $300, we'll be paying almost 350-400 rupees for 1 liter of petrol. So war is a very expensive business, not only for the warring nations, but it has a very big effect on every person of the world, because in this global economy today, everyone is interdependent on, the other country. Some country produces more of a particular thing, some produces less. No country is self-sufficient in anything. But the fact remains, having said that, that the war will be expensive for everyone. The sanctions per se will not make much effect on any country. We have seen sanctions on Iran, sanctions on North Korea, sanctions on Russia since 2014. So sanctions are not going to make an effect. But yes, the common man will have his daily living very, very costly, which I think the world leadership should now, wake up. And it's high time that America and NATO put an end to all this and, ensure that Ukraine will not be made its member. I think a simple one-line statement by either USA or NATO or Ukraine itself.
Yeah, and these internal discussions thinking, on whether to stop import of oil from Russia or not, itself really is a testament of the extent to which US and NATO partners, end of the day, are ready to go. Canadian assistance are being politicized. In particular, the request of the Ukrainian side voiced to us less than 3 hours before the opening of humanitarian corridor. Of course, blame game continues. Major Mohommed Shah, it has been continuing, but unfortunately, in between this blame game, in between, this humanitarian corridor, again and again, failing to see the light of the day, it's those people who are stuck in Ukraine who are becoming the victims. Unfortunately, many of them Indian nationals. We still have a large number of people, about 700 of them, still stuck in Sumy. We have to get them out at the earliest. Really, do you see any light at the end of the tunnel? And, what do you see going ahead as far as the evacuation process is concerned, sir?
Meenakshi, being an optimist, I believe, yes, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and our 700 Indian brothers and sisters who are stuck in Sumy are going to come back home very, very safely. And when rescue operations like these go on, let's accept it, it's a war zone. And what happens in war zone is totally unpredictable. You never know. It is a danger zone. It's every minute, every second is like really very, very heavy. Like coronavirus has taught us this, that when the virus attacks you, it will not ask you're a government employee or an embassy employee or a student or a laborer or a minister. It will just come and attack you. Similarly, when there is shelling, when there is bombing, the bombs which are being dropped will not ask, though they might have been targeted for military bases, I will not deny that. It could have been a possibility, but there is always a collateral damage. The bomb, and while it's falling, or when if there's a miscalculation, if at all there is, it will not ask whether you are being dropped at military establishment or an embassy or a school. As long as you are well protected in an underground bunker, in an underground place, it is safe. You are safe until then. But then, the moment a ceasefire is announced, like it happened 2 days back, and 2 hours later, there's abrogation of ceasefire. Let me tell you, it was not. It could not have been on the macro level. It could have been on the micro level. For example, if the orders came to ceasefire, but then somebody who's trigger happy on ground fires a few shots, then what? Then what? So yes, ceasefire is a time when we can actually speed up the evacuation process, notwithstanding the fact that it's peace. No, that means still there could be something. We cannot afford to leave a guard down. They could still be, though there's ceasefire, there could still be shelling from anywhere that can take place. So you have to be very, very careful. And let me tell people who are fearing the snipers who are there, well, the snipers have a range and it's not easy to fire a sniper. You need training. So obviously the person behind a sniper, like I can buy it to some extent that the civilians in Ukraine can probably get training and somehow they can handle an AK-47 somehow, which is again very difficult. But handling a sniper is a bit far-fetched because sniper is very technical and you need 2 people to fire a sniper, not 1 person. 1 person is your helper, other person is sniper who takes aim, who calculates, who actually really pulls the trigger. So when you are handling a sniper, and if people are scaring snipers, let me tell you that the sniper would have a full knowledge about where the target is. And nobody is going to target the Indian students. No,
of course, sir. We're keeping our fingers crossed. We hope that civilians don't get targeted. But end of the day, it is a difficult situation. Colonel Sodhi, private companies, one after the other, suspending operations in Russia. IBM, of course, is one of the latest to join a long list of companies. Help us understand how this works, the ramifications of the same, sir.
Well, Russia is not going to get affected or deterred by, private companies pulling out their operations. For the simple reason that Russia has been preparing for this war since long. When Russia annexed Crimea in 2014, a lot of sanctions were levied then too. UK banned 5 Russian banks from trading on its British soil. USA and America banned Russian banks from doing operations on the American soil. But what happened after that? In spite of these bans on their banks, still Russia made 1.8 billion US dollars a year by the 31 Russian companies listed on the London Stock Exchange. Now, from 2014, Russia also made its own internal internet called RUNet very strong. Yesterday, when there was a talk of the internet companies pulling out from Russia, President Putin has told all Russian organizations to switch over to RUNet by the 11th of March. A few days back, the International Monetary Organizations, they banned the use of SWIFT for Russia, which is the international payment system. Well, it didn't deter Russia either, because Russia has already its own internal payment system called the SPFS. So, these sanctions, this pulling out from IBM or, Reebok not selling its shoes in Russia, well, they are not going to make any difference to Russia, because as far as Russia is concerned, they all are cosmetic and symbolic gestures being done by the world community at large. Russia is well prepared for all these eventualities since 2014.
Well, absolutely. Major Mohommed Shah, before I move in, of course, to more breaking news which is coming in, private companies pulling out of Russia certainly is going to have an impact on Russia. And in this day and age of technology, when semiconductors, of course, are taking a center stage, when you have big companies, big multinationals, which stop selling technology to Russia, do you not see it having any impact on Russia at all?
No, it certainly will have impact on Russia. It's not that it will not have. And President Putin knows that very well, but he is willing to pay the price for that. And see, it's like it's a beginning to an end for Russia. There's no denying that. There's no doubt about that at all. I have no doubt in my mind. But at the same time, it's like saying, I will die. I will take you along with me. I will not die alone. I will take you along with me when I'm dying. It's like that. I'm drowning, but I will hold on to you and I will make you drown as well. So most certainly, Russia is going to suffer. The price of ruble has already come down so much. It was almost of a rupee until yesterday, and now it's going on further. The Ukraine is almost drowning. It's sinking, actually, rather. So both the countries, on the other hand, now I would call it a fight for egos and the people of Ukraine. But one thing I have to give it to them, actually, I commend the spirit of the people of Ukraine who have picked up arms. Whether it's right or wrong is, again, debatable, as I said earlier. But I appreciate their spirit, their nationalism, their patriotism, and their fight for struggle. But most of them, like all of them, in fact 100% of them, have now, when you issue a weapon to a civilian, he's not a force member, he's not a soldier. Now what happens? He becomes a militant. So now what happens? Now whenever, see, President Putin has taken so long to take over Kiev. Now, do you think it was by design or because the Ukraine army put up a tough fight? They are the mercenaries from Israel, from Iraq, from Syria who are entering and who are joining the fight now. So was it by design that President Putin did not want to actually take over Kiev so early? Or was it that what was playing on his mind which no one would be able to answer that?
Yeah.
But there are a couple of things which one can infer. One could be that perhaps he had a larger design in mind, which meant getting back the lost glory of 1991 of USSR.
I'd like to thank all my experts.